AskReddit. What was your I can't believe this is happening right now moment of your life? I choked on a Chick-fil-A sandwich at a mall food court as a teenager. My friend had gone to get a drink, so I was alone. And I was like, really choking. Not there's a bit stuck in my throat, but every time I tried to breathe, almost nowhere got in and the chunk of chicken moved slightly in my airway. I began trying to get people's attention. To no avail. Sir, if you're choking in public, be prepared to die alone. Unless you do the Heimlich maneuver to yourself. Which is exactly what I ended up having to do. I broke down in the mountains late at night back before cell phones. I had my flashers on and my hood up and was standing outside trying to figure out what to do. 2 cops and a tow truck drove by without helping me. Hours later, a group of teenagers finally pulled over and offered to drive me to a phone to call for help. Talking with dolphin trainer at aquarium. Both of us sitting on the edge of pontoon on water, feet in the water. Feel something brush past my foot, then significant rubbing. Look down. Female dolphin masturbating against my foot. Yeah, they do that, was the trainer's response. Okay. That day my wife and I were having lunch with friends at a restaurant. Wouldn't have been a big deal except I'd recently been blindsided by the discovery of her affair and her subsequent decision to leave me. We hadn't told anyone what was going on, so things were a little strained, to say the least. I was still trying to process everything that was going on, and falling out of love with the woman I'd been with for almost 20 years, and I found myself becoming infatuated with a casual acquaintance I had. A woman I'd met exactly once for all of an hour. Stupid, I know, but that fantasy of falling in love again, of rebuilding my life with someone new, it was the straw I found myself clinging to as I drowned in the emotional maelstrom of divorce. So back to the lunch. Everyone is chatting away, my wife and I doing our best to ignore the 800-pound gorilla that has its arms cozily wrapped around us, when who should walk in, but infatuation woman. Turns out she was friends with one of the other people at the table and, oh, you should join us. Are you sure? Is there room? Well, okay, I'd love to. Which is how I ended up having lunch with my soon-to-be ex-wife and my soon-to-be future wife. Head-on collision with my motorcycle and a sewage drain. I had 1 second to decide to Superman off the front. The I can't believe this is happening right now moment came when I was mid-air. I found my husband unresponsive and called 911. Did CPR. Paramedics came and took over. After 30 minutes they told me he was gone and there was nothing they could do. Tons of friends and family came over right away. For some reason it only hit me when one of our good friends told me not to worry about food or lawn care as she was setting up a food train lawn care for me. That was the oh shoot this is really happening moment for me. That would probably be having a conference call with my boss and HR telling me I was one of 50 people being laid off due to restructuring, while my now ex-wife was in the other room packing her things to move out of the house. The first time I walked up to a plane I'd rented for the day, signed off, did a pre-flight, got in and took off. I legally took an airplane out for a spin, and Noon was monitoring me. It just seemed like an insane thing. Finally got together with my crush. I can't believe this is happening right now. Drank too much and couldn't get it up. I can't believe this is happening right now. Went to a concert of my favorite band ever. Bought the VIP tickets. Chatted with artist before concert. Ended up going out to dinner with the whole band after the concert at some 24 hours diner. Best moment of my life. I am not an attractive human being. I'll open with that. I'm at Starbucks prepping my cup of coffee. For a venti I tend to splash some half and half and do 3 raw sugars. A woman standing next to me says with a smile, take some coffee with your sugar. I politely chuckle and hold up a packet of the raw sugar I'm using. My wife don't keep this at our home, so I tend to indulge in the good stuff when I find it. She makes what I can only image is her bedroom eyes at me, reaches for my arm and says maybe you need to start looking outside of your house for the good stuff. I laughed loud and I laughed hard, because as far I could tell, this stranger was serious. I laughed all the way out the door and never looked back. The time I got punched by a wild mountain gorilla. Backstory. I was in Uganda, where they sell $500 permits where you can hike into the forest with guides and then spend an hour with the gorillas. If that sounds steep, I believe it's even more now, and is kept high so the locals have incentive to protect over poach the gorillas. One of the gorillas in the troop we were going to visit had the name Punchy in the local language because he enjoyed the teenage male game enjoyed by men, a species of I hit you, you hit me back. So upon seeing us he ran towards our group, knocked over one girl, and came to me and hit my gut. Luckily it was a play punch to see if I was interested, and the guards dragging me away to make sure he wouldn't think I was hurt more. But yeah, wild moment for sure. I was 9. My mother and stepfather had gotten into a fight and she decided that everything that caused them to argue had to go, including me. She got the rifle and chased me. I hid for hours until she lost interest. As I hid in the barn, I was wondering if this was a normal thing or not. My first dance with my wife at our wedding. We are 30 and have been married for 2 years, but we have been friends since we were 13. I always had a crush on her. In school I was more focused on soccer, which led to many universities offering scholarships. I was also preoccupied with a severely abusive home situation. Things never really worked out. After high school she went to college. I joined the army. Fast forward a bunch of years. I messaged her on my birthday because she was in France celebrating her master's degree. We hit it off and have been together since that message. All these memories and this timeline flashed in my head during our first dance. I sobbed. I never thought I was worthy of love. I always thought my purpose was to be everyone else's punching bag. Today, I am the happiest I have ever been. I honestly can't believe this is happening right now. As in actual disbelief, I get a car service to from the airport for work trips. Was on a totally nondescript work trip. Was in Manhattan for the week. Didn't go out much or anything outside of working. Just kinda set up shop in my kitchenette suite for food. I mentioned that because I had bought some paper plates at a do-and raid, which I realized was dumb because I needed maybe 3 for the week and had 20 something left over. So I put them in my carry-on to take back with me. Wasn't an issue necessarily, but Tsar thought it was weird, so they took them out to check for explosive residue. They were actually super nice about it. Anyway, no problem. I kept them in there. I mention all of this only because I'm heading down the escalator toward baggage claim at my home airport. See my driver with my name on his tablet, etc. I approached him and he confirms my identity. He then, deadly serious, says something like, I have to inform you that I am a federal agent and we're taking you in for questioning to the federal courthouse. Please follow me this way. I freeze. My brain goes back to those freaking paper plates that Tsar pulled out in NYC. Was there something on there? Do they think I'm a terrorist? I just look at him really dumb for what feels like an eternity. And this guy doesn't crack. I think I asked, what are you talking about? And then he finally drops it and says, man, I'm just playing with you. You got any bags? I've had a few of these. Some of them were amazing. Some were not. At least my life hasn't been boring. My first solo trip overseas. I took a trip to South Africa. I was still a pretty newbie traveler back then and had no idea what I was doing. But I went. Looking out the window of the plane as it's on approach and thinking this is a completely different continent was one of those moments. A few years later, moving to New Zealand. After I caught the travel bug, I got the dream of living abroad. I stepped off the plane with no return ticket. I looked around and thought, this is my life now. I live in this country. One of the best experiences of my life. A few years after that, married and back in the US. I woke up at 4 in the morning with chest pains so bad I couldn't get back to sleep. Woke my wife up and told her I was going to drive myself to the She, bless her for being smarter than I am, said, you're not driving yourself to the Put your clothes on and get in my car. Went to the They hooked me up to the EKG machine. Started getting some results. And the nurses in the room shifted from efficient but unhurried to get this guy prepped now. A doctor walked in and said, sir, the EKG says you are currently having a heart attack. It didn't really sink in for me until I saw my wife's face. I remember thinking, wow, she looks really upset right now. Wait, what did he say exactly? Overall, my life has been more good than bad so far. Ask me again in another decade and I hope to have more stories like the first ones and not a lot more of the second kind.